Welcome to the online video resources for head and neck by numbers. My name is Felicia Sigurd, and I am a dental hygienist and the author of Head and Neck by Numbers. I will also be your guide through the names, locations, and relationships outlined in the text. So let's start with how we use the text. It is very important that you do not write the names on the pictures. The whole point is that you're going to write the number that associates with the other page. So then you can flip it around with that coil binding and just look at the image and quiz yourself. So we'll go through, if you're looking at figure 1, the way it would work is I would say number 1 is superior, and on the screen will flash the image of what you need to color. Now, these videos were made to be short, so I'm not going to just stand here while you color, so feel free to pause me, color, and then start again. Now, we have to get something straight. I am not giving you the grade for this class. So if you find that there's a discrepancy between my book and what your teacher tells you, go with your teacher, okay? But other than that, I think that your teacher and I are both helping you to be a better student and learn anatomy in fun and interesting and hopefully helpful ways. Figure number 3 is the lateral view of the skull. The first item is number 1, the parietal bones. These are paired bones on either side of the skull. Number 2 is the coronal suture. Number 3 is the frontal bone. This is a single bone on the skull. Number 4 is the supraorbital ridge. If you want to look like a Neanderthal, you gotta have that big supraorbital ridge. Number 5 is the nasal bone, a paired bone of the skull. Number 6 is the lacrimal bone, also a paired bone of the skull. Number 7 is the nasolacrimal duct. This duct goes through the skull and enters into the nasal cavity. That's why every time you cry, it feels like your nose always runs. Number 8 is the ethmoid bone. This is a single bone of the skull. Number 9 is the infraorbital foramen, through which passes the infraorbital nerve and the infraorbital artery. Number 10 is the anterior nasal spine. Number 11 is the maxillary bone. This is a paired bone of the skull. Number 12 is the mandible, a single bone on the skull. Number 13 is the mental foramen, another easy one with the mental nerve and the mental artery. Number 14 is the zygomatic bone. This is a paired bone of the skull. Number 15 is the temporal zygomatic suture. Pretty helpful because it tells you which bones are articulating, the temporal bone and the zygomatic bone, to make the temporozygomatic suture. Number 16 is the sphenoid bone, a single bone of the skull. Number 17 is the lateral pterygoid plate of the sphenoid bone. Because it is part of the sphenoid bone, I'd use the same color as you did in number 16. Number 18 is the pterion. This is a place where 4 different bones of the skull articulate: the frontal bone, the parietal bone, the sphenoid bone, and the temporal bone. So the name is the pterion. Number 19 is the temporal bone. This is a paired bone of the skull. Number 20 is the squamosal suture. This name seems kind of weird until you learn more about the temporal bone. The temporal bone has a flat section called the squamous portion of the temporal bone. It's flat because it's been squashed. That's how I remember. So that top line of the temporal bone is the squamosal suture. Number 21 is the asterion. This is another place where multiple bones of the skull articulate: the parietal bone, the temporal bone, and the occipital bone. Number 22 is the lambdoidal suture. This one starts to make a lot more sense if you know your Greek alphabet. The lambda looks like an upside down Y, which is pretty similar to what the skull looks like if you look at it from behind. Number 23 is the occipital bone. This is the backbone of the skull, and it is a single bone.